Operation Mist, also known as the Ardennes Offensive, was the last major offensive of World War II. The Battle of the Bulge was an attempt by the Germans to push the Allied front line west from northern France. The assault began in the Ardennes forest where the Allied line was the weakest. The Allied forces did not expect an attack due to the rough conditions and nearly impenetrable forest. The battle started with a 2-hour bombardment of the Allied lines that was followed by a huge armored attack with the majority of the German armored forces. The Germans experienced great success to start with. During the war, Germans used a very effective strategy called blitzkrieg. They would use a large amount of offensive units such as tanks, planes, and artillery along a narrow front to break through enemy lines. This would disrupt their enemies and allow the German ground units such as tanks to roam freely behind their enemy. This would cause shock and disorganization and make it easy to destroy quickly. This was used very often due to the success of the tactic. The battle raged on for 3 weeks and casualties were high. The United States suffered its second largest surrender of war. More than 7,000 troops were forced to surrender at once when the Germans continued to advance through the weakly defended forest. The success of the Germans lasted just 2 days. Despite punching a bulge into the Allies' front line, the Germans could not capitalize on this. The Germans had based their attack on a massive armored onslaught. However, such an attack required large amounts of fuel to maintain it, and the Germans did not have the fuel to continue the attack. The Yalta Declaration was issued by the conference on February 11th. It declared that the Allied intention was to destroy German militarism and Nazism and to assure that Germany will never again be able to disturb the peace of the world. They wanted to make sure that all the criminals were brought to swift and just punishment. They wanted to make the Germans pay for all they have destroyed. A decision was made to divide Germany into 3 zones of occupation and to govern it through a central control commission situated in Berlin. However, provision was made to invite France to take over a zone of occupation. An important agreement was reached at Yalta, but not disclosed until later, provided for a Soviet declaration of war on Japan within 90 days of the end of the war in Europe. After the defeat of Japan, the USSR was to receive land and special privileges on the Chinese mainland. Text of the Yalta Agreement was not reached until 1947. British General Montgomery's 29th Armored Brigade met up with the American 2nd Armored Division to hold the deepest German push in check. The Battle of the Bulge was the last German offensive that was stopped. By 1945, all gains by the Germans were lost and the war would be over. On May 2nd, the German capital of Berlin surrendered to the Soviet forces. On April 30th, Hitler had committed suicide. This would bring the war in Europe to an end by an unconditional surrender.